Good morning. We see the value in Orange, and we want to help make the biggest impact on our younger generations. And I say we because our student minister, Marty, was actually supposed to be up here joining me, and
guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? It's Orange Sunday, everybody. This comes once a year, and I get a little excited.
You do. I feel very underdressed right now.
You are underdressed. I mean, we've been doing this a long time. We've tried to step it up a notch with the balloons and stuff.
We did.
And I thought that I would step it up. Are you taking a picture of me? There we go. Okay, so I mean, we need to step it up, right? We've been doing this for years. You guys have come and sat in these seats, some of you, and heard us tell about Orange Sunday so many times that it's crazy. And so, but really, this is also a special Sunday because Amy, you've been doing this a while.
I have.
You've now been doing this for 11 years, right?
11 years here at Heritage.
Yeah, and I've been in student ministry for 19 now, and so combined we have 30 years of experience as of this year, and that's a lot.
That's
a lot of time in ministry, and so. But I'm pretty sure that you've probably got some fun stories whenever it comes to children's ministry, or just some quirky things that happen. Kids can be a little bit different at times, and
they are,
and so can students, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there are some differences, but you know. Yeah, we've had everything from just big old messes to so much fun. One of my favorite things, though, about children's ministry is children are very literal. And that makes it a little bit hard when you're teaching different things like parables or teaching about a lot of different things, because they truly think that whatever you're saying is exactly how it happened. So it's interesting to navigate that. But several months ago, we taught about Jesus being baptized. And so one of our little boys, his mom asked him that day, she was like, well, what did you learn about today? And of course, being literal, he was like, well, Jesus was baptized. That is how he was cleaned, by, taking a bath like he does at home. And awesome. I just think that it's funny, some of the things they say and how they interpret what they learn.
That kid's like, my mom makes me get baptized daily. So, Jesus only had to do it once. We in student ministry, we have a lot of crazy that happens. I don't know why, probably because I look like an idiot. We have all kinds of different things. And after doing this for 20 years, a couple years ago, I actually put together, there it is, some student ministry badges that I've earned. There's some crazy stuff on that board, y'all. And so I'm you can look at that. There's convinced middle schoolers to play invisible basketball with no ball and watched it last 30 minutes. That's not a joke. I've had all kinds of different things. There was a kid that was shot with a firework one time. There's all kinds of craziness that's happened over 20 years in doing this. But at the same time, I'm a 90s kid, and so since I grew up reading. One of my favorite book series was Goosebumps. Anybody ever read Goosebumps?
Goosebumps.
My favorite Goosebumps books were the choose your own endings. And so I know that I've only got time to tell one story. And so there's a huge list up there. And so I've picked 3 that you can choose from, and we'll just decide where this goes this morning. And so here's the 3. Nail gun shot in my hand. All right. Number 2 is unintentionally took a bus full of students to lunch at a less than reputable dining establishment. Yeah, that happened. And then the third one is kid knocked out for touching 9-volt battery to his braces. All right, so all of these are great. So you can only hear one. Which one do you want to hear? All right, I'm seeing some 2s. I'm seeing, 3? Okay, there's more 3s. Okay, so you'll have to hear number 2 later. So this one actually happened whenever I was an intern in youth ministry a long, long time ago. This was pre my 19 years. And so this is not counted within some of that. And so we decided we were going to do a retreat. And this retreat was going to be all based on fear. And the youth minister that I was working with said, have you ever touched a 9-volt battery to your tongue? Now, disclaimer, don't do that. All right, but at the time I was like, no. And he was like, it's really scary. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And he was like, you should do it. And I was like, okay. And so I get this 9-volt battery, and some of you guys have done this. Like those of you that are older, you've done this before. Some of you. Don't do this, those of you that are younger. And I'm about to tell you how I did it. So I got this 9-volt battery, and I'm like, and it's real scary at the time, you know, and so you kind of stick your tongue out, and it zaps you just a little bit, and you're like, oh, I thought that was gonna be a way bigger zap. Like that's not near as scary as you build it up to be. And so we go to this retreat, and we decide we're gonna do this fear thing. This was like before there were laws in youth ministry, and like you couldn't get sued for really much of anything, but now you can. And so we set up this big circle in this environment and had this hot seat right in the middle. And we were like, who wants to try the 9-volt challenge? Like it's sticking the 9-volt to your tongue. And like all these teenagers were like, and then this one guy was like, I'm gonna do it. And so he gets up, he sits right in the middle, and he sticks his tongue out, and he kind of touches it to his tongue, and but he's kind of shaking as he's doing it because he's real scared. And then he hits it, and he's like, oh, okay, you know, he's laughing. And then some girl's like, I'll go, you know. And so she jumps in there, and she's kind of shaking too, and she does it. And then this other guy's like, oh, that's easy, you know, I'll do it. And he jumps up there, and he's got braces. And so he's sitting there, and he's shaking, and he goes, and then hits it to his braces, and just goes, boom, and flies back, and is just out cold on the floor. And we're like, oh, like, oh my goodness. And then he kind of like comes to, and he's like, what happened? We're like, okay, so we're talking about fear. And we were just trying to move on like this kid didn't just get knocked out. But and so we don't do things like that anymore in student ministry, but at the time it was really crazy. And so yeah, badge earned. Anyway, but you know, things aren't all like crazy and ridiculous and nuts between children's ministry and student ministry. There's also a lot of really, really good moments, a lot of heartfelt times, a lot of really rewarding times.
Yeah.
Do you have a couple of stories?
Absolutely. Well, you know, one of the things with children's ministry is we want to start off with having children feel like it is a safe place where they can come and have fun. And I actually, you know, being a children's minister, it's hard for me to do anything without visuals. So I have a couple of visuals that I brought. And
props.
they are
Such a good
puppets.
Children's ministry.
When I was a kid, we had a fantastic children's ministry that I grew up in, and it had a really great puppet program, which I loved. And we actually had a puppet named Blue Goon. And I was a little bit obsessed with Blue Goon. And I even remember one time going back behind the puppet stage and seeing Blue Goon and just kind of in awe of him. And so, seriously, like the week I started, I was working with preschoolers, and I was like, we've got to do puppets. So I made a puppet stage and made my own Blue Goon so that we could have this really special puppet that was greeting children every day, and he narrated a lot of Bible stories. And as a matter of fact, a little known fact is that Brock, our senior minister, actually is the voice of Blue Goon. And I have many, many recordings of him narrating different Bible stories for the puppets in Blue Goon's voice, which was a little bit raspy. And after I'd write the scripts, after a while, he was like, if I would have known this was what I was up for, I probably wouldn't have had his voice be so raspy. But nonetheless, Blue Goon was a fantastic addition to our children's ministry. But I did have one little boy that was scared of him and actually didn't even want to come to preschool worship because he was scared of Blue Goon. And that really made me sad because I want this to be a safe place for kids. I wanted it to be a place where kids can thrive and they love it. And so I tried to think of ways that we could make it to where he would want to come. And so I talked to him one day and I said, what if you help me design a puppet? You could draw it out on a piece of paper, make all the details of what you want for the puppet, and I will make that puppet. And so a couple of weeks later, he did bring me a little rendering of a puppet, and that ended up being Harry Snout. He was orange hair with a green beard and a Hawaiian shirt. And so I went to work to make the puppet that this little boy made. And then he joined our puppet shows. And he became friends with Blue Goon and learned that Blue Goon actually was kind of a scaredy cat himself and was afraid of a lot of things. And Harry really helped him walk through that. And the little boy all of a sudden started wanting to come because he wanted to see what Harry was going to do next and how Harry would help Blue Goon. And he ended up loving both of them a whole lot. And so it's just one thing, one way, and there have been many things over the years, many different stories and many things that our leaders have done to go that extra little bit to help each specific child. And that's even our small group leaders get to know them so well that they understand things like fears and things that will help make them more calm and feel like church is a really safe place and a place where they want to be.
You know, with teens, we also have students sometimes that don't feel like they fit or they don't get what's going on. Whenever I first came to Heritage, I walked into a room with a whole bunch of teenagers that I didn't know, and I was really curious where they stood on some stuff. You know, like just because they've heard people talk about God does not mean that they believe the same way, all of them, about God. And so I made a survey that was two-sided on a page, and it asked about God and church and, you know, their family and the Holy Spirit and the, you know, Satan and all kinds of different things on there. And I had them fill these things out, and so they would kind of fill out, you know, where they fell on the spectrum with prayer and other things. And so that Sunday they all filled these out and turned them in. And then Monday I showed up to my office and was kind of looking through all of their answers, kind of figuring out where everybody was. And I turned to one of them, and none of the answers had been filled out. Actually, there was this big etching all the way across it that just said, "I'm an atheist, don't bother." And it was signed by this girl. And I was like, well, that's awesome. And so the next time I saw her, I was like, hey, I just want to say thank you so much for being honest. Like, that is all I ever ask from any student, is that they be honest. And so I'm really glad that you're here. And I left it at that. You know, she was coming with her boyfriend, who was part of our group at the time, and so she ended up getting involved with a small group, got to know her leaders, but also found some really, really good friends around her, and just enjoyed coming. And so a few weeks went by, a few months went by, and then next thing you know, like a couple of years go by, and she's still here. Her boyfriend has long since moved away across the country, and so she's still here, and she's enjoying stuff. And she comes over to me one day and said, you know, I need to tell you something. A lot of my friends at school are asking what's different because they've noticed that I've changed over the last couple of years, like especially recently. Like they're telling me that I'm more fun to be around, that I'm just smiling a lot more, that I'm enjoying life, and they're asking me why that is. And it's about time that I tell them that it's because of Jesus. Like, my relationship with Jesus has changed things in my life. And she was like, and not only do I need to tell them that, like, I need to stop putting on an act, and I just need to commit to this, because this is mine. Like, this is who I am. And so the next week we baptized her at camp, and we baptized another one. And so anyway, but she actually just texted me this last week and said, Marty, I'm going to be joining a Bible college next year, because I really feel like God's leading me into something bigger than what I ever thought. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I'm so proud of you for following what you believe God's doing. And so anyway, just a really, really cool story about how just becoming friends with a group of other people with shared values, having some small group leaders that were incredible in her life and really cared, really makes a difference. And small group leaders are something that make a big difference in both of our programs across the board.
They absolutely do. And we start with finding leaders from the time that children are in preschool all the way up through 12th grade. And we want to have special leaders that will be specifically with these kids, that show up week after week. They pray with the kids. They talk to the kids and get to really know them. Sometimes even go to some of their extracurricular events and just get to know the kids on a different level, because we can't do that with all of the kids. And that's why finding really great people to partner with, great people that'll just have a few that they look over and love on, is really important. to have. And we've had times that our small group leaders have made an amazing impact. You know, I mean, because each Sunday morning or each Sunday evening, they do things with the kids, like they pray with them. And in children's ministry, a lot of times they do activities that are related to what we're talking about that day. And a lot of times even just fun, silly things they do together. But they get to know the kids. And getting to know the kids is really important, because sometimes in our lives and in our families, we have tragedy strike, or we have something that happens that really impacts us. And having a small group leader that's there specifically to love on that child is so vitally important. And even a couple of years ago, we saw that in action. One of our families lost their mother, and we had a little second grade boy that all of a sudden was navigating the world without his mom, and it was unexpected. And so the small group leader and I went over to his house and spent some time with him. And we didn't try to talk about anything heavy or anything. It was just playing a few games with him, trying to just be there. And that's what our small group leaders do. They show up. They show up often. They show up when really needed. And it truly, I believe, is one of the most rewarding volunteer positions that we have here at the church, because they're the ones that really get to be relational and really get to know the children and the students. And that truly is a gift.
Yeah, it's all part of our strategy to think orange. I mean, that's what we talk about whenever that's what we mean when we say think orange. And it's this idea that this heart of the family and the light of the world come together to do something incredible. And not every church does a strategy like that. Like, there are all kinds of different strategies that different churches implement. Many churches don't have a children's or a student ministry program. They think it's important for the church to always be together at all times. And that's a great strategy, and it works in different ways. But we've found that it's really important to do age-appropriate things as kids develop and are on their discipleship journey, as we partner with parents. And we also think that that's a biblical principle. That's not just something that we came up with. You know, whenever the church started in Acts, back in Acts 6, you see that they've got all these things that are going, but they start recognizing there's one group that needs a little bit more specified interest. And so they form leaders to work with these Hellenistic widows to say they need their own ministry. They need to be focused on in a different way than what everybody else does. And we believe that we can do the same thing. However, what we don't want to do is then say, you know what, we'll be like your kid's piano teacher. We'll take all of that on for them. You don't have to know anything about this, you know, or whatever. Yeah. This will just be our thing, or their baseball coach, or whatever it is. This isn't one of those things where our strategy is just drop your kids off here. We'll take care of the spiritual side, because we do believe that there's another side to this. And it's not just all yellow. And so whenever we've had so many moments over these last 30 combined years that we think through what is most needed in the lives of kids and students, I think that we would probably both answer the same thing, right?
We probably would. And I think what we really need the most is parents who are involved in their children's spiritual life. And the best way to do that is by modeling the behavior themselves. Not just expecting their kids to be like this golden child that's super spiritual and loves God so much, because if we're not doing that as parents and modeling that to our children aren't going to pick up that and automatically just do it on their own.
Yeah, sometimes patterns develop. You'll kind of see what we mean here.
A football game can really bring out the parent in them.
It's smart we park near the exit.
Absolutely.
There you go. That way.
Let's put away the parking talk maybe for a minute.
Parking is where the money is, though. You imagine what this place pulls in on parking alone?
All right, no more talking about parking lots.
A lot of these are compact spots.
It's not pretty.
Progressive can't protect you from becoming your parents, but we can protect your home and auto when you bundle with us.
We still planning to head out around the third quarter?
Let's not talk about leaving before we're actually at the game. Watching this was a great first step to unbecoming your parents. The next step is, well, watching some more. Okay, we're almost there. What is that?
Seat cushion? Back support.
Give me that. What? Are we going to a football game or going camping?
Football game.
Okay, so that honestly is a pretty relatable commercial. I mean, I don't know that we actually act like that when going to a football game, but the point of it is that a lot of times kids learn things from their parents, and then when they become an adult, they kind of mirror a lot of the things their parents have done.
Yeah, and it doesn't even take becoming an adult. I can't tell you how many times I've talked with parents that they're like, the way that my kid is acting, I have no clue where that came from. And I'm going, do you really want to know? Because I can kind of tell you, because my kids do the same thing. There are these tendencies within my own kids that I'm like, oh my goodness, that's driving me nuts. And it's exactly like me. It's because they pick up on things. And so some of the things that they do that are just like off the wall and crazy and sometimes like not the best are the things that they found in us as parents. But at the same time, it's not just all the bad stuff. The good things also get mirrored. Like they pick up on a lot of the tendencies that we have, a lot of the passions that we have, a lot of the things that drive us. Those kinds of things end up combining with where we're going. And so whenever we're talking a little bit about this, you've heard us say this over and over again, and I believe that the video actually talked about this too, that every year a church gets 40 hours on average with a kid to be influential. And these things are important, they're awesome. And so we can take some of these hours and we can put them into the lives of a kid and they can start doing some incredible things. But it doesn't do as much as if we were able to use 3,000 hours. Because this is like, you take out sleeping, you take out times that they're at school, 3,000 influential hours is a lot of hours compared to what the church has. And so it's not enough to just hand over your kid to a church and say, maybe you can do the discipleship side. And so what we're saying is, could you imagine if we dump these into a kid's life, what would happen? But unfortunately, what I believe is actually reality is we get up here year after year after year and say this, and a lot of us just assume like, we'll get around to these. We'll eventually pour them in, but the truth of the matter is every single day these things are just kind of going everywhere unintentionally. They're going away whether we're intentional about them or not.
They are.
Whether we're intentionally pouring into our kids or not, these hours are being used. But wouldn't they much better be used if we dump them in instead of just letting them go by? And so what we've been talking about here is this idea that we want to partner with families, and we believe that this is also a biblical approach. As the Israelites start to go into the promised land, they're getting ready to finally take it. After years and years and years of waiting, they get excited about taking the promised land, and Moses says, hey, if you want this to really go well, if you want it to really go well for you in the land, here's what I need you to know, and it's in Deuteronomy 6. And it says this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commands that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands, bind them on your foreheads, write them across your door frames and on the houses and on your gates. Now, it's real easy for us to see this and go, we also need the next generation, so impress them on your children, and we jump to that. We've got to impress them on our kids. But that is not first and foremost. First and foremost is this: love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your strength. These commands that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Whenever our kids and our teenagers see our lives being spent in so many different directions, but God's just kind of like a passing thought, of course they're going to look at us and go, so why does that really matter? Like, what does that really do for me? Like, how on earth does that make any difference? But when they see that it is our hearts, whenever they see that Jesus really does make a difference in my life, it's something that means a lot to me. It guides the way that I interact with people in this world. It guides my principles and my virtues. That makes a difference. That's a whole different way of doing this. And then from there, we can't help but impress them on our kids. But not only that, there's actually another step. We bind them on our hands and our foreheads as we go about doing business in this world. They're also written across our door frames and on the gates as we are part of a community of faith who believes these things. And so a lot of times what happens when we talk Orange Sunday is that we think all of us are the families, and they're talking about how they as a church join with us. But you realize that as a family, you are both here and there, right? You are the church. It isn't one of these things where like they're the ministers, they're the yellow, we're the red. No, you're the red and you're the yellow, and we need both of those things to partner together. We need you to care about other people's kids.
Absolutely.
We need you, and some of you in here are going, ugh, Orange Sunday, I don't even have kids. Like, they're like, I don't want kids, I don't want anything to do with kids, but at the same time, others of you are like, my kids are long gone. Like, I was ready for them to leave whenever they hit their teenage years, and I'm perfectly fine with them being out of my house. But you are also part of this. You are the leaders that we're talking about making the difference. You are the ones that are showing, that we hope will show up for these little kids. And some of you are teenagers in here, and you're going, well, this doesn't have anything to do with me. Wrong. You can be something for someone else as well.
Absolutely.
We need everybody as a church joining together in this strategy to partner with families, to work together, if we are a family, to utilize our hours well, but also to pour in other ways, because it's not good enough for these kids and these students to just have two influences. We believe that two influences can be great, but better than that is two combined influences.
Absolutely. Because we're working together, and when working together, we really can make a bigger impact. And there are some ways that we do the yellow that we try and partner with parents. And some of the strategies and things that we do here at Heritage are our small groups and our small group leaders. Our small group leader is a fantastic bridge between the ministry and the family. Because they're the ones, like we said earlier, they're the ones that get to know your children. And they're a fantastic person to get to know, or fantastic people to get to know, so that really you guys can partner. I mean, if your child is struggling with something, a great person to tell is their small group leader, because they can help them walk through that alongside you. And so they really can make a big difference. So we truly love our small group leaders and all that they do and give to the kids.
Yeah, and that's true for teenagers too. I mean, even as teenagers, we have small group leaders that are showing up constantly. I mean, every single week, whether the teenager shows up or not, our small group leaders are like, I'm gonna be here if they need me. I will be here week after week after week, whether they show up or not. And they truly love these students. But at the same time, I also know that as a dad, my own kids are not gonna listen to me forever. In fact, they already may not. And so I'm trying to be careful, because they may be in the room or it may not. But I also know that sometimes, even whenever I was a teenager, my parents could say something all day long and I would not hear it. But as soon as somebody I trusted said it, it made a difference. And I want that for my own kids too, because I know that they're not going to listen to me forever.
Absolutely.
I know that even though I may have great wisdom to share with them, it doesn't always matter. But whenever somebody else who's a trusted adult says it, it matters to them. And I want that for my own kids, and I want that for every teenager, that they would have people that they know, I don't have to go through this life alone. I've got some other people that join in this journey with me, and they're there for me no matter what. And so yeah, small group leaders are a big thing. But also, Amy talked a little bit about transit events earlier, and some of the ones, like she talked about the child dedication that's
a little
happening.
bit.
And so we've got transit events, these milestone events where we as a church, as leaders, as programs, want to come alongside and help some of our families.
That's right. And I did mention earlier today that our first transit event is our child dedication event. And that's actually this afternoon at 2 o'clock. And we have families that have signed up to do that, but we would really love to welcome all of you to that. It's a time where we focus on what is going to be like, imagining the end, imagining what it looks like when that child is older, and what we want to instill in them from the very beginning. It also is widening the circle by allowing people that you trust and love to become part of that circle of helping raise that child. which also includes allowing the church to come in and be a part of that as well and to partner with you as parents. And so even if you didn't sign up for the event, if you would like to do it, if you'd like that to be something you do with your child, we're making extra space and we would love to welcome you to that. Or if you're somebody that would like to just come and help bless these families, please come and do that. We're doing it at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So that's our very first in children's ministry. Our second event in children's ministry is when our preschoolers move into the kindergarten program. And things change a little bit with going into elementary. And so we have a pancake breakfast for the families and the child on the Sunday before they're moving up, and they get to learn a little bit about what to expect in elementary ministry, and they get to learn a little bit about who they can partner with. And so we feel that that's a really important event. The last one that we do in children's ministry is our transition event from having our 6th graders move up to the student ministry. And this one is always kind of a happy, sad moment for me because a lot of the children, they've been with us their entire lives. I mean, especially this year, the kids that were moving up were 11 years old, and I literally started working the year they were born. And so walking with them for 11 years, it's hard to say goodbye, but it's exciting for the next step and the next phase that they get to go into.
Yeah, that's our Transit C event, and we really enjoy getting to do this with 6th graders because I mean, some of you remember jumping into that middle school age is tough. You know, having new faces, new leaders, a new time, a new building, like all that can be very intimidating. And so we just want them to see, like, you've got a lot of friends here. There's a lot of really cool people here. We do a lot of really awesome stuff, and so they enjoy getting to see a little bit of a different side of student ministry. And most of them are excited for that next step. But beyond that, we even this past Friday we did our Transit D event, which is for those coming into high school. And we have seniors and their families. So the seniors speak into the 9th graders' lives. The parents speak into 9th grade parents' lives, and they're like, hey, guess what's coming up? And so it's a really, really good time for us to kind of share ideas and insight and that kind of thing. But then we also have our Transit E event, which is for our seniors. And a lot of churches do that at the end. Once they've graduated, like, we're not going to celebrate until you've proven yourself. But we like to do that at the beginning of their senior year, because if we were to line up a whole bunch of seniors up here at the very end and say, hey, these are our seniors, we hope that you've had some kind of an impact on them, most of you would go, I don't even know half of their names. And so what we want to do is we want you to know who they are, now. We want you to see their faces. We want you to be praying for those faces. And so I'm actually going to ask right now, if you're a senior, I know we had some seniors in first service. If you're a senior in second service, can you just stand up real quick where you're at? I know I see some of you guys. All right, we got a couple here, right there, back there. All right, so we're going to say congratulations on making it so far, but you still got a year ahead of you. All right, go ahead and have a seat. So we want you to get to know these students. You've got a year. You've got several weeks, and we want you to utilize those weeks well to get to know them, to pray for them, and to speak into their lives. But we've got a lot of things that we've said this morning. And I realize that some of you are thinking, man, maybe I want to jump in on this in a different way. Others of you are going, as a parent, like, if I'm honest, I feel a lot like these ones that are on the ground. I feel like I've dropped the ball. And I get that feeling because as a dad myself, life just rushes by.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you just get caught up in the whirlwind, and our lives can look a whole lot like this. And it can be easy to go, I don't even know how to pick that ball back up at this point. It feels like it's too late. In fact, they're their own person, and I don't know how to do that. And what I would encourage you to do is try being honest with your kids for a second. Just be honest with them. Say those things. You know what? I've got something that I've always said is a priority in my life, and I want it to be a bigger priority. And I get that I haven't done that, but I want to. And I want you to help me with that. I want you to hold me to that, because I think that makes my life better. And I want us to do this as a family, but first I get that I need to do it for me first. And so say some of those things. It's okay. One of the best things you can do, those of you that are parents, is to say from time to time, boy, I don't get it right every time. For them to see that honesty in you, for them to see that
Absolutely.
vulnerability is a wonderful thing. But also, we want you to know that when you feel like this, you aren't alone. There are others around you that feel just like this, and we're doing it together. We're doing this life together. And we can help you with where you want your life to go, with where you want your family's lives to go. So partner with small group leaders. Talk with us. Let's figure out something, because we truly believe that once you know the life of Jesus, it makes a big difference. Once you see a better way, it just kind of changes some things. And so talk with leaders, but not just that. We also need some of you to be those leaders. We need some of you to step over into those roles and step into the lives of kids and to let them know that they're not alone in this world. I need several of you to do that with teenagers, to let them know that they're not alone, because often they feel like they are. Same with kids.
Absolutely.
And so what we want to do is we want to put on something tonight. And so tonight at 6:30, we're going to have some stuff right in here, and we're inviting everybody back for some ice cream. Actually, some orange sundaes. All right, so tonight at 6:30, we'll have ice cream in here. And so if for no other reason, show up to get ice cream. But also, we're going to have different grade levels all around here where everybody can get to know other families with other students or kids that are in that grade level. You can meet their small group leaders. But also, if you don't have kids, or you don't have kids anymore, or have kids that you claim, then there are other ways that you can sign up for different ways to jump in. And it may be that you're going, I don't like kids. I get that too. You can still help out. If you've got one of these, if you've got a phone, we've got things that we need some people to be able to do for helping our programs and helping partner with families. And so we've got some things that we can tell you and show you ways that you can jump in and partner alongside of that. But the bottom line is, we don't want you to feel alone. There are
Absolutely.
leaders in this church, but even more than that, I think that there's a bigger thing that we want to remind you as we close out.
That's right. And that bigger thing is that God is there for you. That we're not standing alone, any of us. And even there are times that we as a ministry staff feel like we're not equipped, or like we feel weary at times. And that is a totally normal thing for all of us. And you know, one thing that is right by my front door, and it has been for years, is Numbers 6:24-26, which is the blessing. And today I would like to say that to us as our prayer, that we are able to know that we don't have to shoulder everything ourselves. We have a church family that is here to help hold us up. As parents, as individuals, we're in this together, and that God will not forsake us. God will always be there with us to bless us. And so this is my prayer for you guys. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord to turn his face towards you and give you peace. I pray that we all have peace, and that know that we are much better when we are orange together.